Hi everyone and welcome to Alex Builds. This is the video that works for everyone. So if you're a first time viewer, you're going to see me build a barn over 5 years. However, if you're one of the regulars who's been with us for all 38 episodes, I've included a cock-up that I was so terrified by, I couldn't include it in the original footage. We're going to complete the barn today and there is a super special reveal at the end. I promise, I'm not being clickbaity. Right, let's zip back to 2021. Well, it sure seems peculiar looking at this now. See those bamboo sticks sticking in the ground? Well, that was me marking out where I thought the barn, where the barn did actually go. Got that big pine tree, we'll be coming on to that in a minute. There's also an ash there, also got to go. So this was my very first experiment right at the end of January 2021. Basically, I mixed up some concrete, put it down to create a temporary little slab so that I could try building a bit of a wall, because I've never worked with brick, I've never worked with stone, never worked with breeze blocks. You can just see how amateur everything is. I mean, look, I'm using a plastic lid there as my mortar board. Another thing I'd never done before was video myself. So I actually bought a DSLR digital camera with a microphone, and it's me giving it a go. God, I look rough. Here we have a facing stone. You know what? If you want to learn how to do something, just crack on. So I did. I ordered a load of stone, a load of sand, and gave it a go. So here's the test wall in progress. I mean, everything's wrong. I haven't learned how to mix mortar yet. And I'm trying to sort of use these rough cut stones. So rather than trying to coarse them, I'll discover all this later on. But again, you know what? Good effort, getting it to this far. The amazing bit though is I did this and I decided that I was definitely good enough to build a barn. Seems quite comical hindsight. Now, this whole project's a DIY self-build. I pretty much did everything on my own, but I wasn't taking trees like this down. So I got the tree surgeons in. This is the big pine going. All I now need to do is hire a digger and trash the garden. And over a long weekend on the 18th of February, that's exactly what I did. Again, I don't think I'd ever driven one before, to be honest with you. They're not that hard. This is me breaking ground. I mean, you can see how gingerly I'm going because I just haven't got a feel for it at all. Yeah, very slowly. But you know what? You start to get your rhythm quite quickly. I mean, this is sort of only about an hour later and you can see I'm having a good hack at the bank here. And basically by the next morning you can see how much I'd scraped out. I mean, I wouldn't exactly classify this as an achievement. It's an absolute mess. But I had moved a lot of earth. I'll tell you something, it didn't take long, 2 days in fact, until I hit potential showstoppers. This is the tree stump of the pine tree. I mean, believe me, this is about 4 or 5 hours in. You can hear me cheering in the background. It was very satisfying. So I'm still on that same long weekend here, and I had to dig out the trenches for the concrete to go in. Again, it seems like a lot of stuff to do for one initial weekend. But this did not exactly go according to plan. I mean, for a start, you can see that it's all a bit of a mess. I hadn't managed to get the corners particularly sharp. All right, that's okay. This is the sort of general shape forming, but here's the real problem when I got the drone up. It doesn't actually look too bad there when you have a little glance at it. However, well, this is the shape it was meant to be, and here is the shape that it actually was. But you know, first example, I had to properly problem solve my way out of this. So this was me doing a bit of PowerPoint for the video and showing you how I was going to solve it. So what it meant was I had to recut some of it. That's the red area there. And I thought, well, if I put a bit of plywood and kind of create a little bit of a form within it, I could then fill in those areas there and it should give me something good enough for the concrete. I mean, all this concrete was going to be buried anyway, so I wasn't exactly panicking at this point. So, cue a massive delivery of plywood there, which I proceeded to put into sheets and then basically buffer up the edges. Just involved a lot of manual digging, basically. Looking quite sharp there. Oh, and here's Buster. Rest in peace, Buster. He lived for a good couple more years after that, but in a very rare display of good behaviour. And that one day, because he always used to run off, by the way, he sat and watched me, basically, for half an afternoon. Very sweet. Well, we get a lot of nice comments on the channel, and if you do leave me a comment, always tell me where you're from, because you might get on the map that, as you can see, we've been filling up over the last few years. But for the last one here, we're going to be going down under, mate, to Melbourne, where we say hello to Stefan, and he says, don't you go finishing that barn. Sorry, mate, not long to go now. As of today, no major injuries to report, but plenty of minor ones. Ow. I'll let you do your own lip reading there. My next little wheeze or invention was to make a concrete chute out of that plywood, which is a way of getting the concrete down to the footings. Well, we had a whole episode dedicated to what was called the concrete fiasco. My God, it was. I can't believe how enthusiastic I was. It was soon to go a bit wrong. Kind of went in okay at first, but here's some words that came back to haunt me. A few little gaps here and there, but this is concrete, not water. So this was at the end of the first delivery, and the basic problem is that it was too thick and it didn't flow all the way around, which I sort of imagined it probably would. We then had the second delivery, and by this point I'd moved the concrete ramp and I got the guy to mix it up like crazy runny. Well, the concrete did make its way around. I have to say that I think that was possibly the most stressful day of my life. I really was. But anyway, it filled up, but the problem being is that it was not even. We had a 21 centimetre difference between the height of the concrete at the back there compared to the front where I just was. So we were always going to have about 5 or 6 courses of these trench blocks, which live underground, sitting on top of the concrete. So I got the laser and a string line out and basically worked out what the offset was and cut them all for a whole course, which is quite a lot, as you can see, to offset that on the first course. It took a long time. Well, cost me about 2 or 3 weeks, I think, in the end. But here's where course 2 is sitting on top of course 1. You can see, pretty successful. Very important development, April 2021, the Avant 220. I bought this. My God, it turned out to be a fantastic purchase. I actually bought it because I just thought I cannot be taking these trench blocks down in a wheelbarrow. And eventually even made a path into the middle of the structure so I can get really near. Not looking bad here at all. Again, we're only in April of the first year, which started in late January. It's a great progress. So here we had the last block going in. What we then had to do was fill the void, and that was a load of MOT Type 1 aggregate, followed by a layer of sand, then some plastic damp-proof course, on top of which went the insulation. Didn't have to put that in, because it's not residential, but I chose to. Bit more damp-proof course, and then a bit of rebar at that end, where potentially I might consider parking a car. Now, having had my hands well and truly bitten by the concrete fiasco, this time I hired a guy with a concrete pump, which was unbelievably effective. Went really well. My old mate Gareth, regular viewers of the channel will know Gareth, he pops up from time to time, and he was there on hand to help me scoosh it out. But compared to the fiasco, and frankly by anyone's standards, a really, really professional job actually. So I'd already bought some stone for the test wall, so I kind of knew what I wanted. So basically I just had to get 14 more bags, and that was delivery 1. Had another 16 after that. Now at this stage I still hadn't actually figured it out. I was still trying to do this kind of like just pile the stones up and make them fit like one big massive jigsaw puzzle, which was difficult, ineffective. So the big breakthrough came on this section. These are the blocks I put in before, which I needed to face off with stone. So I had the idea to start cutting the stones and basically to put them into courses. This also was a point where I realised that I was mixing the mortar all wrong. So the old wall came out, and here was the effect of the new style. And at the time, as I said, if a professional had done it, I would have been delighted with the result. So this was the technique that I used for the main walls, which resulted in a huge shift in quality, if still a little slow going. And here you go, another little minor injury for you, which actually only made the footage in the last episode. Ah, you f***. It's always going to happen. Shambles. Bugger me, that hurt. Very, very painful. Anyway, around this time, another design change was actually the width of the entrance. Do you remember I put some rebar down on the main end in case I wanted to park a car? So I went for 2.6 metres wide, based in a ludicrous bit of optimism around the width, I think, of a Ferrari 488. And that would be the width I would have to do the arch to. Of course, winter was upon us, so I decided to get a nice bit of weatherproofing. Yeah, it lasted about 2.5 weeks. It wasn't the rain, the wind came and ripped the whole thing down. Never mind. Now, just a quick aside, I don't know what's more pitiful, this or measuring it out for a Ferrari, but if you could reward that pity with a bit of love through clicking like or subscribe or even the bell, I'd really appreciate it. It hugely helps the channel. Thank you. By December, again, I had this problem. I think it's called, is it fluorescence? Basically, the lime mortar was leaking out. We were able to sort of jet wash that out. And that's where we concluded the first year. So here we are in March 2022. It didn't appear to do anything. It's sort of January, February time. But the big goal that I had and the huge chink of light was that if I got to course 13, I could start on the arch. And here we are. It's arch time. Well, I think all my episodes are good, but if I had to pick one out, I would say go and watch the arch episode. highly unorthodox as usual, but I actually think that the engineering that I put behind it was in itself a work of art. Alex builds a bit of a Brunel type character, or so I believe. Eventually the time came to lay these. These are called queens, by the way, and these are not designed for an arch. They're actually designed to go in the corner of buildings, and I did have to saw a bit of a contour into them to make them work. And here it is, Sunday the 7th of May 2022, and it was complete. Such a beautiful thing, and still an amazing sense of pride I get from that each time I look up at it. Perhaps less elegant was getting it out again. Oh God, but that was great fun. Look at that. I mean, with hindsight, was that the right thing to do? I just couldn't resist it. From then, it was just a case of basically setting the arch in. You can see here, and you can just see to the left there that we're starting to get the apex, as I always called it. And this was, honestly, the most tortuous phase, I think, of the whole thing. It took 9 months from there to get up to the, I'm going to say the pinnacle. Never know the words for stuff. But you know what? We had some great footage. It looked good. And, bit by bit it crept up, but I was working in the winter, and as you can see here, we've got the changing of the seasons. So it was pretty relentless, and it carried on, I think, until March 2023, until I finally got to the top. And there you go, phase 2 complete. Time to do another thing I'd never done before in my life. Play around with a bit of timber. Green oak, to be precise. So I used a package, an online thing called SketchUp, which is free, which I taught myself to put a design together, and then basically put an order of oak in with a wood yard. I didn't get all of the oak, I got a small batch. This is what you see here. So I decided that I was going to start with arguably the most complicated bit of the structure, which was a raised collar truss. Now, something I didn't know, and it's very hard to get across in this video, is how much green oak weighs. It's unbelievable. When the guys helped me load it in the van, they actually said, "You're not seriously putting this in that, are you?" I did. And you can see my unloading technique. Again, not the most elegant. And then for the first time ever, just got set to cutting the pieces out, really. Went pretty well all in all. And again, as I say, these are not exactly trivial cuts that I'm doing here. And this is the first time we saw this tool. It's called a chain mortiser, and it digs the mortises out. I hired this one for quite a while, but eventually I did buy one. Not cheap, at nearly £1,500. And nice snug fits on those tenons going in there. This one here, which I'm trimming off with a chisel, goes in particularly well. There was a really, really tricky one I had to do in this, where I basically had to do an undercut. You can see here, ended up being quite manual. Then, well, I had to start assembling it, which was not as easy as I thought. Here I am using the Advance to try and plonk them into place. Eventually I bought a ratchet winch, some ratchet straps, and as you can see, some terrible trainers. And here, beautifully captured by the drone, is the raised collar truss. It's called a raised collar truss. It's basically that middle bit is raised away from the bottom. Another absolute horror show when the build was this day when this wood turned up. The guy crashed, damaged his lorry in the lane, got stuck. Oh God, it went on and on, I can tell you. And then I was left with all the remaining oak just sitting in enormous piles. So the summer months carried on. That's me trying to protect my neck from the sun, and basically getting much more of a production line and a huge increase in quality. Well, I didn't buy the Avant to move the wood, but it's a good job I had it, because there's no way you could move this stuff by hand. So more complicated pieces. I mean, some real proper skills I've got going at this point, again, if I may say so myself. Not every cut was complicated, of course, some of them were absolutely huge. So here we have this piece with a bunch of mortises dug in. You notice, keep filling up with water. So December came, and with that the hire of a massive telehandler, which on at least one occasion I got stuck in the mud. I mean, I look back on this now, God, I mean, what was I thinking? Now, one of the things that features in the comment is people say they love it when I leave all the cock-ups in and show you. Yeah, well, there was one cock-up that even I could not bring myself to include. Now, on the first attempt to get this in very poor visibility, I thought I touched the arch, and I did even acknowledge it here. Hard to film, but I don't know if you can see how close we are to the arch with that little hook. And yes, we did strike the arch. I can't believe I did that, but I got away with it. Now, I thought I had touched the arch, but actually it was the next day where that same hook properly touches the arch. Watch this. Oh my God. And do you know what's worse? I didn't even know I was doing it. Look at the bottom of the screen. See that green thing? Well, that's my helmet, and I'm not exactly looking up. But it gets worse. I'm not done. You're going to see I do it again, and it's just sheer good fortune that I didn't just drive all the way back at this point. I mean, if it had fallen over, it wouldn't have fallen on the cab. It would have fallen behind, so I don't think I would have been killed. That said, another blood-curdling bit of footage is me climbing up a ladder, not knowing what has happened already. Oh God, I can hardly bear to watch this. There you go. Finally, this is cathartic. I feel I have fessed up to the channel. More crazy weather. You can see that actually I've got the raised collar truss kind of like strapped in against the apex with a bit of 2x4 there, but of course I'm in complete fear about both of them falling over at this stage. My strategy was just to go nowhere near it at all times. So here we are doing the back section. I think honestly after a sort of few days I've come to the conclusion if it was going to fall over, it already would have done it. So, you know, we find ourselves again with some pretty hefty sections that needed to go up. I'm pleased to say I didn't reverse into anything else. I really took my time after this, I can assure you. Eventually I got to put the upper sections on the back, and this was particularly good news because it meant that I could put the purlins in. Why did I care about putting the purlins in? Well, basically the purlins going in gave me the sense that these, the raised collar truss, which actually felt pretty steady, and the stone apex and arch, which I was terrified would fall over, and the rear section would all be stitched in together, so made me sort of feel that there would be a degree of stability to it. But you know what, time went by, there I am standing underneath it, and the longer it went, I forgot all about it. And I still do today. And by the way, if you're a structural engineer or something, don't leave me a comment telling me something awful. I do enjoy sleeping at night. Okay, annex section next, and I was working to a design a little bit smaller, this annex, than I originally planned, and a lot simpler in design. This was nice. Basically all the legs and the struts, I packaged them up, covered them in tarp because I knew they'd be sitting there for several weeks. Big improvement in proceedings, where I decided to compromise precision for speed by using a chainsaw. Highly effective, and actually not that inaccurate either. I had a lot of problems with drill bits, including this notably comical incident. Smoke coming out of the bloody thing. The Bosch hammer is smoking. So 4th of April, I had a few days off, time to get these out again and construct the annex section. Same sort of technique, I basically constructed as much as I could on the ground, and then it was hire the telehandler time again. And what I had was, for the upper section, I had 3 of these assemblies sitting here ready to go. This went really well. Basically, I worked from within and plonked them down on top, one at a time. Well, and hey presto, a few purlins later, we've got a full looking structure and looking great. So all we had to do is bang a roof on it, and this involved a lot of rafters to start off with. Quite easy to cut, quite quick. Looking nice and straight here, but also looking a little bit zingy. They don't really match the oak, so I had to basically stain a lot of these 2x6 lengths. Again, good progress, but this was kind of the more straightforward part. Things got way more tricky around the other end. I had to do what's called a wall plate here. I found a bit of old stone and put that in place. Basically, if the rafters were sit on those stones, the individual, they definitely would have knocked them out. But this would be where work stops for ages, because basically over the summer I built an outdoor kitchen instead of focusing on the barn. And if you'll spare me a bit of shameless self-promotion here, they're really good videos. There's a 3-parter where I taught you all the way through the whole thing, and also a bit of a quicker time-lapse one. Oh, look at those Yorkshires. Beautiful. But anyway, turned out looking good. So here we go. We return here, Saturday the 12th of October. So this is when I really buckled down to get this thing over the line. Starting here with the valleys, these were complex, and again, it was a bit of trial and error, if I'll be honest with you, getting these pieces to fit. But again, successfully so. Again, had to put all the noggins in, and kept it all relatively straight by this kind of contraption I used to work out how to cut them. But here we go, really motoring on now. Typical health and safety nightmare in progress. But fear not, those health and safety concerns would finally be addressed by the installation of a proper scaffold. Really, I could have done with this all along when I did the rafters, but it's very expensive to keep scaffold up. Certainly in Britain anyway. So all of this is real winter work. Well, here we go, getting the roof finished. Again, looking super straight there, really good. So the first job we had to do is we had to put the sort of the damp membrane down first of all, on top of which went a lot of batons. This was me just doing a little test fit with one of the slates. And talking of which, I had all the slates delivered. I think there was about 1,600 in total, but they wouldn't deliver them all the way to my house. So I had to decant every single one onto a pallet and drive it down. Another very time consuming and heavy job. I resisted the temptation to start the tiling until all the batons are on, which occurred on Monday the 30th December, so once again right at the end of the year. And here we are, this is the last sequence I shot of 2024. I did that in a day, and that's kind of like essentially half of one side, so going on pretty quickly. I had to deal with the valleys, and this is when the lead made its first appearance on the site. Really started to fly through it, and also again some highly innovative structures. The doofer, as I called it, to help me get to those higher parts.
Do you know what? I am going to clomp up and down.
A really nice little touch is I bought a load more lead and I started cutting it into what's called scalloping. Here's my little cardboard template that I made. As you can see, there's a lot of it, and all of that was cut by me by hand. I mean, this turned out to be really effective. I mean, first of all, just general aesthetics, because not only did I use it on the roof, I also used it to face the oak. But also on a practical level, it worked really well with doing things like the ridge, really helped to get that set in well. So we needed a finial for the end part, and I decided to turn my own, which involved buying a lathe and doing this with it. As usual on Annex builds, the journey and the technique may not be pretty, but the outcome usually is. And there we go, the roof done. I am still slightly blown away by the quality of that roof, and it's been up a few months and it's all still in one piece. Really, really sharp. I think you'd agree. Right, let's whiz through the jobs to get to the finale. So services went in, landscaping was complete. Again, quite fiddly, quite time consuming, but decided to use these oak panels for the walls. I decided to work around the diagonals and have those oak facing outside, and that took quite a long time. Here we go, this is my 51st birthday, and I spent it putting in some bifold doors with my old mate Gareth. Two big final jobs were finishing the side, which included installing a window in the truly most unorthodox manner, like top down. And then finally, just a bit of paving going around to what I call the balcony area. And hey presto, you're up to date. Right, come on then, let's get this thing finished. Only two big jobs remain, the stable door and the barn doors.
This is it, this is the last jobs really. And I haven't really been very organised, but this thing has been sitting here for about 2 months. That is the oak for the door that goes in there. Let's call that the stable door. And the door that's going to go in there, which we call the barn door. Right, so truth be told, I haven't actually seen this yet, this wood, apart from on the sides. So we have some bits of oak that are plain in nature, and a load of tongue and groove ones, but I can't show you those because they are a little bit further. Well, I can show you in a minute. But now, I'm not saying cutting this wood to shape is going to be straightforward. I don't think it is at all. But the bit that fills me with the greatest sense of trepidation is mounting the brackets to the stone, with the potential problem of stones coming loose individually. So how precise I want to be, I mean how much I want to follow the contour of the stone, and let's get every nook and cranny. Well, obviously I don't want to do that, but bit off at the end. Okay. What is not to like? Right, so the weapons of choice for this job. First of all, the Bosch hammer. Back on the channel, ever reliable. I've bought a pack of 5 of these. I think this is called an SCS bit, rather than using my chuck. So that's going to make the hole. These are bigger than that, because I've got to get the resin in, hopefully it will stick. So these are just long threads. I've got some cap bolts to go on those. I'll come to that in a bit. So the first one I'm going to do is going to go into here, here and here. This one here is a bit narrow, this is really thick. The coins are very, very strong. Right, productivity taking a bit of a dip. So the problem with this is that the door is going to be too far forward. So what I've done, put it out, I've made a little spacer here. Right, update. So I've got my little spacer wood thing behind. These aren't attached, these aren't even resined in, so it can move around. So this is more just a sort of test fit to put these through, see what they look like. Right, here we go. I'm going to do the middle one first, just so I can show you what I'm doing. The pipes of peace.
Yeah, I know, weak. This is a chemical resin anchor, and basically it's got two types of chemical in it. You squeeze it out and it goes incredibly hard, and that's what I'm going to put these thread bolts into. I saw this recommended online, and it provides a brilliant alternative to things like anchor bolts, which have been hugely unsuccessful for me in the past.
Oh god, it really smells horrible, by the way. Okay. Okay, that's good. Right, this is looking really quite promising actually. We're not quite there yet, but so here's the stuff. I mean, it's only been in about, we can time it, 10 minutes. And it's like a rock already. Quite a hard rock as well. Right, that looks good, doesn't it? You not agree? Yeah. Nice. This was a scene. Remember the bashing out the arch support? That was good. Looks like a Black Sabbath cover, doesn't it? Right, quick colour change in the windows.
So onto the stable doors, which were obviously a lot smaller than the barn doors. So you probably would have thought I might have started with those, but anyway, for some reason I didn't. So much the same technique. Stable door being the term for the fact you've got a top and a bottom section. No need to do it. I just fancied it. And again, very, very rapid progress. I think the whole thing took me about a day to put these in.
Honestly. I mean, I'm not saying it's totally production standard, alright? You pay hundreds and hundreds of pounds for doors like that. Yes, probably better quality than I can do them. I don't care. How's the lean height? Swing back and hit me in the face. That would be comical. That is optimal lean height. I'm going mental again. You know, occasionally when I finish something I start giggling. I can't believe it. Oh, brilliant. Optimal lean height. Let's put a smile on my face.
Okay, big hole reveal coming up because these are the last jobs. Just put this bar on here that sits over the gap between the two doors. So here I am putting some of these studs in, metal studs. I don't think they serve any purpose than aesthetics. They were quite cheap as well. And here I am putting oil on. It's actually just a basic decking oil, but as you'll see, turned out great.
Well, that went a bit better than expected. It's funny, as I look through the viewfinder, it looks darker than it is in my eye. But anyway, let's say we can trust the lens. Anyway, that's wet still, although it's oil. It's not going to dry, but got a tiny bit lighter. But I don't care. I mean, from where I'm standing, it's about perfect. There it is, Saturday the 23rd of August, 5:18. It's done. It's actually done. Today I stained it, snagged it, put all the studs in. I've even got the lawn looking pretty good. I mean, all those patches there, that's where the wood was stored. So we've gone with black. I'm not sure, the jury's out. I might do a poll on this. That just looks lovely, and I am so pleased with the quality of the stable door. They look really good now. Now I've got the studs in. I'll do more on this one because it's a little bit, it's kind of like wider than you'd expect a door to be, so I'm just disguising it. But that's partly so I can get stuff in and out, like the Avant and ride on lawnmowers. I'm not so keen on this end, if I'm honest. I rushed it. At least one whole end is dark, if you know what I mean. That's fine. I might repaint those bifolds. I like the bifolds, they work fine. But I'm not so mad on the colour scheme down there. But anyway, look, this is not a moment for negatives, is it? So, I think it was early January 2021 where I stood just down over there and I created a test wall. And I've done it. And let's remember, right, this was not guaranteed that this was going to succeed. Not guaranteed at all. Well, I always said it would be nice to finish the build on my balcony having a beer. And here we are, ice cold bottle of Corona with a wedge of lime. Personal favourite. Can I go over? Maybe. So, well, it's been nearly 5 years. And it's come such a long way, and I've got the channel to 23,000 subscribers, of which I am particularly proud. I'm proud of the barn, but I'm particularly proud of that. Thank you so much to all of you coming on the journey for all, what was it, 39? Too many episodes. And also just in particular, the comments that people leave from around the world. They're so friendly and so, God, so life affirming. Honestly, it does mean quite a bit when I read them and people are encouraging me and saying that they find it funny or good or inspiring. Doesn't matter. I really enjoy it. So it's well, that's it. What next? I don't know. But it's an adieu and farewell from Alex Builds. Just before I go though, one small piece of business.
Most mixed up, not delinquent on the block. Your future's so unclear now. What's left? Your career now. Can't even get a trade in on your smile.